It's the seventh and final phase of the Marathon Lok Sabha 2019 campaign. Hello and welcome to Explained, where we're going to analyze the significance of this last phase. I'm Aarti Subramaniam, and helping us answer this question is Mirror Now's consulting editor, Vinay Tewari.
Thank you, Aarti. Final over is always the most exciting.
Right, like Vinay was saying, this is, of course, a final over in this long-drawn campaign, and 59 seats are going to be going to polls across 7 states and 1 union territory. Vinay, we're just days away from May 23rd, and this is the time for the big hitting.
Oh, yes. And the big hitters are out in this fray. Last over, as we said, and both sides have to really score heavy to take a shot at Delhi.
Right, and the man who's going to be looking to that is Narendra Modi. He is going to be the BJP's pinch hitter in the slog overs. And remember, he's contesting from Varanasi. Now, the BJP, of course, swept Uttar Pradesh. Varanasi was one of the seats that the Prime Minister won with one of the biggest margins in the earlier elections. This time it almost seems like he's gotten a walkover with no big candidate against him. Last time it was Arvind Kejriwal. This time there was a controversy over his opponent, but there seems to be no real challenger.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there is no question about the outcome of Varanasi for sure. In fact, if anything, I think the margin will perhaps go up further because there is no challenger and he remains the numero uno in that constituency.
Absolutely. Now, if you look at the map on your screen, there is another very key seat that is going to polls in this particular round, and that is Gorakhpur. Now, Gorakhpur, Vinay, is a very interesting test lab almost for the opposition, because along with Phulpur, this is where they tried that Mahagathbandhan. And for all our viewers, now Gorakhpur has been this long-held seat by Yogi Adityanath. It represents, and it is such a prestigious seat for them, that when they lost the 2018 by-polls, it was a huge, huge setback.
Oh, absolutely. Adityanath was an MP for 19 years, 98 to 2017. He never lost that seat. So when that by-poll result came, it was as much of a shock as you can imagine. But three things have changed, and changed dramatically. Number one, the person who was actually the giant slayer in that by-poll has actually crossed over to the BJP. He's actually contesting from Sant Kabir Nagar, which is an adjacent constituency. So that giant killer is not there anymore. The other thing that has changed is, remember, the by-poll voter turnout was very low. And obviously, in a Lok Sabha election, in a full election, you would expect the turnout to become higher. Third, and the most important thing is, Adityanath has treated this as a prestige issue because he cannot be seen to be losing his seat twice in a row.
Twice, yeah.
And because of that, you've seen he's almost camping in Gorakhpur. He has taken over Ravi Kishan's campaign, who's the BJP candidate. Ravi Kishan himself has been, for the first time, you would have heard Ravi Kishan using his full name. He's actually Ravi Kishan Shukla. He never uses his surname. And he goes around telling people he's a son of a priest because that's what the identity of Adityanath is. So it's a high prestige issue for Adityanath. He cannot be seen to be losing it, and hence you've seen they've put out all the heavy guns, including the Prime Minister and Amit Shah, to campaign from there.
Right now, very interestingly, this of course is eastern UP that is going to polls. If you have a look at the map there, this is the eastern part of the state. Priyanka Gandhi was made the Congress campaign-in-chief in this particular region. She made a very interesting comment where she said that in areas where the BJP is weak, we're fielding candidates, or rather in areas where we are weak, we're fielding candidates to cut the BJP's vote share.
Yes, and look, the Congress's strategy in Uttar Pradesh has been mystifying, to say the least. It makes no political sense. It also sometimes shows up a little bit of political naivety on their part. For instance, her comment, or the party's comment about candidates eating into the upper caste votes, is naive for the simple reason the upper castes moved away from the Congress in the 90s itself. They've always been with the BJP. They've never really come back. The Congress has never been able to win them back. To now imagine them coming back into the Congress simply because Priyanka arrived a month before the elections is a little far-fetched. So it's mystifying. If they've done anything, they've ended up damaging some seats for the Gathbandhan. And to imagine that there will be a vote share division on the upper caste is extremely naive and not exactly practical.
Right, well, their calculations could go a little wrong in that state, but another state that the Congress is really banking on is the state of Punjab. Now, the entire state is going to go to polls, and very interestingly, in Punjab, you have the starring personality of Amrinder Singh, who, the captain as he is called, who is batting for the Congress on the front foot. Now, the BJP, almost to blunt that, is using the 1984 riots, Rajiv Gandhi. You've seen a shift in the narrative in the past 1 week in the BJP where these issues are being spoken about.
That's right. Look, Punjab is a very different state in India. Of all the states, Punjab is very, very different. Number one, there is this concept of Punjabiyat, the Sikhism concept. They don't get impressed very easily by anybody. This is the way they are. That's the culture of Punjab. They've never been people who get impressed by anything or any rhetoric. They are also not people who get scared very easily. So you can't use a fear psychosis narrative to win an election. So these elections in Punjab are fought on very state-specific local issues. In fact, in this election, most people tend to say that there are separate issues for every region, sometimes every seat. So a lot of the narratives that you see resonating nationally don't resonate there. The narrative of nationalism, which works in every other border state, doesn't work in Punjab for another reason. Amrinder Singh himself is an army officer. And not only is he an army officer, he's fought the 67 war. He was the ADC of the Lieutenant General JOC-in-C Western Command in those days. So he's been there, done that. And he has extremely good relations with the army and the folk that constitute a bulk of the Punjabi population. So that narrative is very different in Punjab.
Now, Vinay, there's another party in the fray in Punjab, and that is the Aam Aadmi Party. Now, they won 4 seats in the 2014 polls, and they did reasonably well compared to the other states in Punjab, even in the assembly polls. Perhaps not as much as they had anticipated that they would get. So, but this time around, you're seeing a very splintered AAP, a very fragmented AAP compared to what it was back then. But the question then is whose votes are going to be transferred there?
Oh, that's the biggest question of this election, because actually very few people have an idea of where the transfer of votes from the AAP will go to. I mean, whether it will be Congress or whether it will be Akali Dal, it could actually vary from seat to seat as well. But look, the dilution and the segmentation of AAP has been the biggest factor in Punjab in the last 5 years. Remember, Punjab was the only state where Aam Aadmi Party won a Lok Sabha seat. They'd done well in Delhi, but they did not win any Lok Sabha seat in Delhi. Punjab was the only place who spends 4 MPs. But they've systematically lost that mandate that they had. Except Bhagwant Mann, there is no real candidate. Even a candidate like Dharamveer Gandhi, who was a very strong and a very popular person in Patiala, has moved away and formed a new party. So they've really gotten themselves into a jam in that state. And very few people have an idea. And that's the big X factor of Punjab, on which way those votes will go.
Right, that's a big X factor, of course. Now, let's shift focus to Madhya Pradesh. Now, the region that is going to be going to polls is a very significant area. It's a largely agrarian area. And the BJP, of course, swept this region in 2014. But the Mandsaur agitation, and that is a farmers' agitation which saw the death of 6 farmers in police firing, is something that is going to resonate in this area because of the kind of terrain that there is.
Absolutely. So aside of Indore, which is urban in character, most of the other parts of this part of the state are completely rural. And that firing and the incident certainly has had an impact. But one thing else has changed. Congress came on a huge hype over a lot of agrarian push policies that they had come up with and promised. In the last couple of months, the government doesn't seem to have delivered it as aggressively as perhaps people had estimated. One, because there were very high hopes. And when you have very high hopes, even if they are fulfilled to half a level, you tend to get disappointment. So there is some amount of resentment even against the Congress. So that's kind of evened out a little bit between the BJP and the Congress in terms of the distress that the farmers are facing with both governments.
Right, but just speaking about this region itself, now it's hugely significant. If you just have a look at, and this perhaps tells you the story of the assembly results in 2018 in Madhya Pradesh. Now, in 2013, these particular 8 Lok Sabha seats constitute 66 assembly seats. Now, the BJP swept this in 2013, and that's why they were able to come to power in the state. But 2018 was a very, very different story where the Congress just edged past the BJP. They had 38 seats to the 28. So for the BJP, doing well here is very crucial.
Very crucial. And the Congress improved purely on the grounds of the rural push that they were doing, because there was resentment against the current Shivraj Singh government that the Congress came back and did very well. And now that resentment has slightly gotten offset by equal amount of, if not equal, but some amount of resentment against the Congress as well.
Now, the state of West Bengal is seeing a very shrill battle between the BJP and the TMC. Now, 9 seats are going to go to polls, and this was swept entirely by the TMC in 2014. But there's a very interesting story behind 2 seats in particular, Jadavpur and South Kolkata, because this gave birth to the phenomenon that is Mamata Banerjee.
Oh yes, when she split from the Congress and went out on her own, this was where she started it all. And I think most people in that part of the world remember her as one of those feisty young women in politics who were taking on the might of the left. And the fact that she's now here and ruling that state for so many years tells you that this laboratory became a laboratory for the state as well.
Right, though it is going to be a very difficult battle to unseat Mamata and her citadel. But there is another interesting battle that is brewing in Bihar. Now, there is one seat, that of Patna Sahib, which is, you know, the BJP is going to be looking at very closely, because Shatrughan Sinha, their former MP who now switched sides, is going to be contesting against Ravi Shankar Prasad, who is actually contesting his first election.
That's right. 3-time MP versus a debutant. And I mean, how many people would know that Ravi Shankar Prasad has never contested an election before? But look, the interesting thing is that for the longest time, one of the reasons why the Shatrughan Sinha and BJP grew apart was because Shatrughan Sinha always thought that he's not being given his due. And he always used to push this line within the party that his stardom is what gave BJP the fillip in the state. This seat is now a test of that. If he can win without being in the BJP, then it will be an endorsement of the fact that his stardom got him the victory. If he loses, the BJP will be proved vindicated, because then they'll say it's the party that made you win and not your stardom.
Well, there are two other states and one union territory going to polls as well. Chandigarh, one seat, three in Jharkhand, and four in Himachal Pradesh.
Well, in a tight match, every run counts, so every seat counts, even though they're small seats.
Well, Vinay loves this cricket analogy, and I'm going to further that and say this is, of course, the final over. It has been a long and grueling Lok Sabha campaign. We're just days away from May 23rd, where we find out who the next government of India will be.